in our years in the monastic sangha of the Thai forest tradition, we learn the importance of remembering this special day, the full moon of Vesak. Usually that falls in May, but this year that particular month is our early June. But on this day, the Visakha Puja. Puja means to honor what is worthy of honor. On this Visakha Puja, we honor the awakening of the Buddha. Also as a gesture of the extraordinary, sparse, no frills nature of the Theravada tradition. Not only is the Buddha awakened on the full moon of May, but in that particular tradition, they having been born and dying on that same day. So our teacher, Ajahn Chah, a Western teacher, the senior Western disciple of Ajahn Chah, used to say, well, the importance of this birth and death on the same day, full moon of May, is the potentiality, the possibility of what are we doing with this life? Are we just going to perpetuate decades, lifetimes, eons of entanglement, deluded attraction to the pleasant, reactivity? Are we just going to perpetuate greed, hatred, and delusion, which is the samsaric, endless wandering? Are we going to, in that span between birth and death, going to use this occasion to wake up out of the spell, the enchantment, how we get enchanted, mesmerized by the sights and sounds, smells and tastes, sensations, all framed, and that's the secret of the enchantment, all framed within this perception, these ways of seeing. That until we wake up are colored, tainted, distorted by confusion, rigidity, false notions. I was reflecting this morning when I got up that it's been almost 47 years since I met Lumpur Cha, Ajahn Chah, in a forest monastery of northeast Thailand. And the unexpected gift that he gave on that first meeting still is such a source of blessing. I still feel Ajahn Chah's presence from time to time, his compassionate, playful, immovable, pointing to the truth. My conviction, my trust over these 47 years has deepened in what seemed impossible to a mind that had been, when I met Ajahn Chah, a mind that was so looking outward to success and this notion of awakening on a horizon. This mind that had been conditioned to be fearful of pain, failure, being shamed. So unexpected that 47 years later to more and more deeply know, trust that there's a treasure right here shining within our own being every moment, permeating, blessing every cell, every thought, every mood, all of our so-called world that's shimmering around us. That there's a jewel, a luminous, peaceful jewel shining from within, accessible, ever inviting, that had just been overlooked. "47 years later, I remember that first meeting when, having read Ram Dass's Be Here Now, which was hugely inspiring, an exhausted student at Oxford University, 24 years old, who felt 104 with all this work at striving towards success, and reading about Ram Dass meeting this extraordinary teacher named Kroli Baba Maharaji, and how Maharaji tapped him on the head and he burst into tears. But Maharaji knew him, seemed to know him, and even could see and tell Ram Dass about, what were you doing? I think it was on a lake, praying, remembering his mother. So remembering this meeting with an extraordinary, quote unquote, awakened teacher, I was hoping, because I had heard about this great master in Northeast Thailand. I really wanted to meet one, and was so hoping for a transformative experience. Couldn't necessarily articulate it clearly, but I was just tired. I knew I was trying so hard to get somewhere. But I was hoping all that could just be cleared away. In that first meeting, many of you have heard this story countless times, but there's some treasures there. Ajahn Chah, when I finally got to talk to him, being introduced by this American doctor who had taken me to meet Ajahn Chah. Ajahn Chah asked me why I had come. I sputtered something or other. I'm sure I threw the word enlightenment in there, though I had no real notion what that meant. But inside, what I really wanted was to be recognized, to be blessed, to have all this suffering just go away. But my answer didn't felt a bit flimsy. And then Ajahn Chah asked if I knew how to meditate, and I immediately felt a little more confident because I had some experience there. I had done a 10-day meditation retreat and a half. I'd done a shortened retreat after the full 10-day retreat. And had been given a technique being with sensations and sweeping my attention through the body, and it had produced, oh, okay, I was in hell a lot of the time, but there was that, I did have an experience, a momentary experience of peace, and so inspired by this potentiality of this method of meditation, of sensing the way that the world can change, our experience of the world can change. So as I was telling Ajahn Chah about, I didn't fully say, I mean, I was telling him about sweeping my attention through the body, but what I didn't announce was that I felt that I had a special gift with this, because usually the method was taught you sweep down one side of the body at a time, but I intuitively, all on my own, realized I could sweep down both sides of the body simultaneously. So I thought, maybe I have a skill here. I was hoping Ajahn Chah would recognize my potential in meditation. So I'm meanwhile telling Ajahn Chah about my meditation. And then right before I really got very far, I was sitting on the floor with my friend who had taken me there, and there were a few monks, I think, and then some other lay people in a forest underneath Ajahn Chah's hut. So I think there was a marble floor. There was stilts to keep the ants from coming up into the hut. Above us were the little cabin where Ajahn Chah lived, simple little cabin. And we were on the floor. Ajahn Chah was sitting on a wicker chair just above us, and we were there. So I was telling him about my meditation. Right before I got going very far, Ajahn Chah got off of his chair, got on the floor, started sniffing all over the place with enthusiasm, I might add, and saying a few things in Thai. And people were laughing. And he wasn't sparing any places. He was sniffing everywhere. I could tell that it wasn't a deep praise of my meditation, but it was funny. And I was finally asking Dr. Burns, for a translation, and smiling. Ajahn Chah got back up on his chair and said, and then Doug was translating, "You don't need to look all over the place. He said, be with your breathing. If you understand one thing well, you'll understand everything. If you try to understand everything, you might end up not understanding anything thoroughly." I'll repeat. Be with your breathing. If you understand one thing well, you'll understand everything. If you try to understand everything, you might end up not understanding anything thoroughly. Let Samedo teach you how to be a monk. Now you might think, wanting to be recognized, I might have been horrified having my meditation be apparently made fun of. I felt touched. Later, I heard Ajahn Chah called it stabbing the heart. He made a connection. And that's what I did. I let Samedo, who became my teacher, Ajahn Samedo, teach me how to be a monk. And this foundation practice, the Buddha called it the foundation, first foundation of mindfulness, this being with body, before trying to figure it all out, cultivating this primary relationship with the present moment, the most tangible way that the reality of this moment presents itself to us, is this bodily impression. And that's what I did. Still, the mind wanting to figure this out, that out. By the way, I was writing a thesis at Oxford at the time when I left to go be with Ajahn Chah. I never finished the thesis, but it was called Art, Science, and Mysticism in the Works of Aldous Huxley. I wanted to understand the creative enterprise, science, religion, how it all fit together. Noble, undivided, holistic wish to understand reality. But Ajahn Chah gave me the method, which he was passing on, and later I began to appreciate it, passing on the Dharma, the teaching of the Buddha. That teaching, those teachings, one of which was the foundations of mindfulness. Letting this attention, the Buddha taught that when the attention is connected, consciously connected as a frame with form, with body, feeling, awareness, and dharma, that those trainings are revelatory. They reveal gradually what has been here all along, this treasure of the pure heart. So even though when 47 years ago, when my mind was, I don't feel good, how can I get to feel better? And what about this? And then memories of what I did that was selfish, hurtful, greedy, wanting to be a good person, wanting happiness, not wanting pain, to have a training, an encouragement to, can you be with an in-breath? Can you be mindful for the span of one in-breath? Mindful for the span of one out-breath? Holding the attention on the sensation of breathing in. Holding the attention on the sensation of breathing out. Already getting the feeling of this source, of revelatory source, this simplicity of breathing in and breathing out has so much to reveal. Already just recognizing this so-called separate me here needs to be supported. Ajahn Chah taught the value of a long breath, a long in-breath, and we're really caught up in a lot of stuff, breathing in long, savoring, appreciating, recognizing that this so-called troubled sense of me, it's not separate. It can be nourished and soothed by this oceanic purity around us. Of course, that's under threat now with how we're living on planet Earth, but that's another aside. But certainly in the forest of Northeast Thailand, and here at the moment, thank goodness, in this beautiful redwood forest around us, where Thanissara and I are right now. That long in-breath, receiving the gift from the trees, allowing that life-giving quality to suffuse, permeate, brighten the body, mind, and as on that long, slow out breath, allowing the attention to discover again this foundation of presence, foundation of mindfulness, way in which the inner knowing can steady itself as we relax, let go of trying to do too many things, trying to understand everything before we just establish ourselves here, now, composed. Visakha Puja, on this day of awakening, we celebrate it and trust. On some level, we all have it. We can deepen it. You wouldn't be here if you didn't trust that there was some truth in the awakening of the Buddha, that that's possible. It's possible to be free from confusion, purified, not distorted by greed, hatred, and confusion. And the Buddha realized the deathless. What does that mean? Realize the deathless. His body still died. He realized that principle, that dimension of this reality, which is not coming, not going, which is vibrantly, luminously, unsupported, unconditioned, unborn, undying, unshakable, within which the ephemerality of the nature of existence shimmers and dissolves, shimmers and dissolves. When we're attached to an in-breath, we're excited about, whoa, this was inspiring. Oh, this is boring, this out-breath, bit stale. Oh, but here's another in-breath. When we're attached to something, when that dissolves, we wobble. When it appears, we feel home. But birth and death happens when we're attaching to something that's ephemeral, not self, unreliable. So what does it mean the deathless has been attained? When the citta, the heart, is purified of confusion, then in-breath and out-breath are known as they are. A breath is born and dies. Praise, the Buddha got praise. He also got blame, but not being attached. There is praise, there is blame. The deathless, the Buddha's abiding, was rooted in the true nature that was revealed through his recognizing the ephemeral nature of all conditions. On the Visakha Puja, we honor this awakening of the Buddha and his teaching of the Dharma, those expressions that allow those like us who hear, called the Savaka Sangha, those who hear the sounds. That's how it was taught all in the beginning, orally, the sounds of the Dhamma. Those sounds, are they to be just grasped at? As doctrines that are the ultimate truth? No. Those sounds, if we listen closely, those sounds have in them instructions, trainings, like Ajahn Chah gave to me on that first day. Be with your breathing. If you know one thing well, you understand everything. The sounds of the Dharma aren't just doctrines to be grasped. They're guidance as to how we then can train this attention to look into the nature of things and awaken to that very same heart of hearts, undying core. Ajahn Chah talked about being Buddha, being the knowing. And that this true nature, Ajahn Chah would say, peace is here within. We just overlook it. That's just what the Buddha taught. So it's not only faith, trusting that there is such a thing as awakening and an awakened one who taught these teachings that have lasted through time, 2,500 some odd years later, that we can still access. But that those teachings are pointers. They're not just doctrines to be grasped, they're pointers, reminding us to listen, to see for ourselves. One of Ajahn Chah's favorite words was pachatang. We chanted it, the qualities of the Dharma. In the Ittipiso chant, we chant it as a blessing. Savakato Bhagavata Tamo. These are the formal teachings are well expressed, that are heard by us, but those formal teachings are pointing to something sanditiko that's always here and now. This true nature is always presenting itself. Akaliko, it's timeless. Today is a special occasion, the Visakha Puja. But the Dhamma is not just limited to the Visakha Puja, even on our worst day, when our back hurts, we ate too much and we knew we shouldn't have, but we did it anyway. A bad time, even the bad time experiences like that in-breath and out-breath appear, dissolve, subside within the timeless Dharma. It's ahipasiko, always inviting us, opanaiko, it keeps deepening. And then this word that I was just mentioning was one of Ajahn Chah's favorites, pachatang, this knowing the way things are is pachatang, to be done individually by each of us, so that we wake up out of the spell and know the true nature, the essential nature, the peace that is within. On this Visakha Puja day, where we're remembering our good fortune to meet Ajahn Chah, who in that stream of those who listen to the Dharma and wake up to the true nature, and then become living, breathing beings who can encourage others. That's the value of Sangha, having a person of integrity, a trustworthy being, encourages and reminding us that we can always, even if no one good is around, we can choose to befriend what is good and wholesome. I want to finish with reading an excerpt of Ajahn Chah from Living Dharma, where he talks to the significance of this occasion. The value of Dhamma isn't to be found in books. Those are just the external appearances of Dhamma. They're not the realization of Dhamma as a personal experience. If you realize the Dhamma, you realize your own mind. You see the truth there. When the truth becomes apparent, it cuts off the stream of delusion. The teaching of the Buddha is the unchanging truth. Whether in the present or in any other time, The Buddha revealed this truth 2,500 years ago, and it's been the truth ever since. This teaching should not be added to or taken away from. The Buddha said, what the Tathagata has laid down should not be discarded. What has not been laid down by the Tathagata, the thus come one, should not be added on to. He sealed off the teachings. Why did the Buddha seal them off? Because these teachings, said Ajahn Chah, are the words of one who has no defilements. No matter how the world may change, these teachings are unaffected. They don't change with it. If something is wrong, even if people say it's right, doesn't make it any less wrong. If someone is right, it doesn't change any just because people say it's not. Generation after generation may come and go, but these things don't change because these teachings are the truth. Now, who created this truth? The truth itself created the truth. Did the Buddha create it? No. The Buddha only discovered the truth, the way things are. And then he set out to declare it. The true is constantly true, whether a Buddha arises in the world or not. The Buddha only owns the Dhamma in this sense. He didn't actually create it. It's been here all the time. However, previously no one had searched for and found the deathless, then taught it as the Dhamma. He didn't invent it. It was already there. At some point in time, the truth is illuminated and the practice of Dhamma flourishes. As time goes on and generations pass away, the practice degenerates until the teaching fades away completely. After a time, the teaching is refounded and flourishes once more. As time goes on, the adherents of the Dhamma multiply, prosperity sets in, and once more, the teaching begins to follow the darkness of the world. And so once more it degenerates until such a time as it can no longer hold ground. Confusion reigns once more. Then it is time to reestablish the truth. In fact, the truth doesn't go anywhere. When Buddhas pass away, the Dhamma doesn't disappear with them. The world revolves like this. It's something like a mango tree. The tree matures, blossoms, and fruits appear and grow to ripeness. They become rotten and the seed goes back into the ground to become a new mango tree. The cycle starts once more. Eventually, there are more ripe fruits which proceed to fall, rot, sink into the ground as seeds, and grow once more into trees. This is how the world is. It doesn't go very far. It just revolves around the same old thing. Our lives these days are the same. Today, we're simply doing the same old things we've always done. People think too much. There's so many things for them to get interested in, but none of them leads to completion. They're the sciences like mathematics, physics, psychology, and so on. You can delve into any number of them, but you can only finalize things with the truth. Suppose there was a cart being pulled by an ox. The wheels aren't long, but the tracks are. As long as the ox pulls the cart, the tracks will follow. The wheels are round, yet the tracks are long. The tracks are long, yet the wheels are merely circles. Just looking at a stationary cart, you can't see anything long about it, but once the ox starts moving, you see the tracks stretching out behind you. As long as the ox pulls, the wheels keep on turning. But there comes a day when the ox tires and throws off its harness. The ox walks off and leaves the empty cart sitting there. The wheels no longer turn. In time, the cart falls apart. Its components go back into the four elements: earth, water, wind, and fire. Searching for peace within the world, you stretch the cartwheel tracks endlessly behind you. As long as you follow the world, there's no stopping, no rest. If you simply stop following it, the cart comes to rest. The wheels no longer turn. Following the world turns the wheels ceaselessly, creating bad karma. Is like this. As long as you follow the old ways, there's no stopping. If you stop, there is stopping. This is how we practice the Dhamma.
Sadhu. What? Well, that was a complete teaching. So I haven't got okay, well, what comes to my mind in the transmission of Luang Por Chah and the times I met him in England and in Thailand was he was really more about what have you come here for? And people come here more to get something. We all come here to get something. He was more interested in what have you come here to let go of? That was really the essence for me of Ajahn Chah. And that his constant reminder when we forget that and we start to identify with that wheel turning, then there is inevitably dukkha. But rather than fear dukkha, his transmission was to have the courage to track it, to engage it, to enter it, to find the way through dukkha and beyond dukkha. You can't do that by bypassing the reality of this First Noble Truth. So I honor Ajahn Chah, I honor his lineage of disciples and all the lineages before, right back to the Buddha, and perhaps so many Buddhas through the aeons that point to this timeless Dhamma for us to realize, to know and taste directly cessation of the samsaric wheel. It's a mighty gift for sure. And I also honor Guan Yin, who we're going to be practicing with just now through manifesting this beautiful, even though it's a short form, iteration of this ancient puja and the heart mantra of Guan Yin, the great compassion mantra, the Dabejo. Because really to let go, what do we let go into? It's a complex. This is in many ways, it's a simple teaching. The process of it is not necessarily that simple, but what is really important is that there is compassion, so that when we are letting go, we have a ground. The ground is groundless, of course, but the journey is held by compassion. Otherwise, it's harder to really release and relinquish. And that compassion manifests in many, many different ways. To encourage can be fierce, can be peace, can be very difficult life circumstances where we have to let go. There's nothing else we can do. That's in a way, the way of compassion, the way of Guan Yin is a mysterious message and induction and initiation into compassion to allow us to make that not only releasing, letting go, but handing everything back to nature, to Dharma. So I felt that very much embodied, even though I didn't really understand what Ajahn Chah was saying directly without a translation. I understood what he was saying from his heart. And that's been one of the things he said to me. I was very young when I met him, was like, you'll appreciate this teaching as you get older. And that is true. Things start falling apart and you start aching bones, and we're facing the inevitable. Yeah, the inevitable. anicca of the body and death, transitioning from this life, this form, from all the beloved that we've known. And then the Dhamma is our true friend. So I just leave those few thoughts to put a little cherry on the top of Kittisaro's beautiful cake on this Visakha Puja day. Okay, so let's just take 10 and then we'll meet back for the puja.